good friends in the General Assembly, our sponsors, Senator Castro, Representative Musman, for championing this legislation. I want to thank them. And also thanks to Representative Mueller. And I don't know whether Representative Slaughter has made it, but I know he's on his way. And really, they helped to make this bill through the legislature and to get to my desk. I also want to recognize Zach Schwartz from South Elgin High School. You're going to hear from him in just a few minutes. He's somebody who understands why we need this kind of a program in our schools to make sure that we're limiting the use of cell phones. Nelson Mandela once said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I really believe that. And since my first day in office, improving public education has been among my highest priorities. Together with our partners in the General Assembly and educators across Illinois, we've increased funding for our public schools by $3 billion per year. We've raised teacher pay by quadrupling the minimum teacher salary in the state. We've improved recruitment and retention so that Illinois schools now have a record high number of teachers in classrooms and better student-teacher ratios. More teachers are working in the state of Illinois than ever before. And that's producing real results. Illinois is now among the best states for K-12 education in the entire nation. U.S. News now ranks us as 5th in the nation. World Population Review ranks us 5th. CNBC ranks us 7th. So it's not just me bragging. There are independent raters of schools, and they are saying that Illinois is among the very best. Only one state outpaced Illinois in 8th grade math scores, and we've achieved a record, one state in 8th grade reading scores, and 4 states outpaced us in 8th grade math scores. Another way to say that is, again, we're in the top 5, and I love that. We should be, I want to make number 1, by the way. I'm not resting until we get there. We've also achieved a record high school graduation rate in Illinois. That should be something that we're all extraordinarily proud of. It's not, no standards have been dropped to get there. This is just Illinois students doing better. Every year doing better, and now we're at this very high graduation rate. We also have the highest graduation rate now, more than ever before, for Black and Latino students who are graduating from high school. So really pleased about all the advancements that our kids have made. Those achievements are a credit to our students, to their parents, to the extraordinary educators who show up every single day determined to help every child be the best that they can be. Our responsibility as a state and in state government is to make sure that we are creating the right environment to give them every opportunity for success. We're answering that call once again today. We're making our classrooms more focused, more productive, more conducive to learning. So with my signature on the bill in just a few minutes, every school district across the state will work with its teachers and its parents and its students to establish a clear and comprehensive policy for cell phone use during the school day. Everywhere in Illinois, from Chicago to Carbondale, from Rockford to East St. Louis, I've heard the same things about this. Students are distracted. Teachers sometimes have trouble getting students' attention. Principals are experiencing disruption that smartphones create throughout the school day. Parents have been concerned and have seen cyberbullying and, of course, the mental health impact that social media and phone usage are having on our kids. Students share that concern. Schools in Illinois that have adopted cell phone-free classroom policies, as we've heard from Dr. Johnson, have seen improvements in academic performance and student engagement and overall well-being. Bullying declines, grade point averages improve, AP scores increase, students spend more time connecting with one another instead of scrolling past one another. And I'm very proud that Illinois continues to lead in education by listening to educators, by following the evidence and putting students first. I love that our state schools are nearly the best in the nation, but frankly, I do want us to beat all of the rest of them and become number one, and this law will help us get there. So thank you all very much. Thanks for joining us today. And with that, I get to pass the podium over to a real champion for teachers and students and Illinois education, your very own U46, formerly U46, Dr. Tony Sanders.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to be here today. They say you can't go home, and apparently they're wrong, because you can go home. I want to thank, of course, the U46, like the governor, the U46 Board of Education and Administration. It takes a lot to welcome the governor and a team of people here to host a press conference, and so I want to thank them for opening their doors and making sure that, that this is such a welcoming environment, not just for us, but for the students who you serve. I also want to thank Governor Pritzker. His dedication to public education is second to none, and I appreciate the opportunity every day that I get up and stand alongside him to fight for public education. I also want to recognize the sponsors of this monumental legislation, Leader Senator Castro and Michelle Musman in the House, who sponsored this amazing bill. Just like U46, and the governor said this in his remarks, districts that have enacted cell phone bans or similar measures tell us that it does work. They've noticed that students have fewer fights, they have more human connections in class, they have fewer distractions and more student engagement, and together these changes made rooms for better places for lessons and for learning. Less distractions absolutely all the way around for everybody. And it improves relationship building among the students and deeper connections with teachers. Learning can be hard enough without distractions. We want teachers and students free to focus on what's important, which is, of course, student learning. The digital landscape continues to evolve so fast that it can be challenging even for adults to keep up with it. But it is our responsibility to prepare our students to develop their human potential, to open themselves to true connections with their classmates and teachers. Those are the skills that are timeless and will survive throughout a child's life. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here today, especially Senator Castro, Representative Musman. I also want to recognize Representative Moeller, who is with us here today. And with that, it is my honor to recognize Leader Castro.
Wow, height challenged here, guys. Thank you. First off, thank you, Tony. I consider Tony a great friend, and Governor, you're still one of our best. Thank you. I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna read a speech in English, but for our Spanish-speaking media, I'm gonna read one in Spanish because there's been a lot of attention on this bill and a lot of interest. So please bear with me. Good morning, everyone. I'm State Senator Christina Castro, proud alumna of U46, and as you can tell, I'm a Royal. Sorry, Maroons. But so is Suzanne. Suzanne Johnson is a Maroon, so we have this kind of banter back and forth. She's class of 93, I'm class of 96. So it's this East-West rivalry that we have, but it's a genuine love for everything U46. And I'm honored to be here today because every child deserves a quality education. But to make that possible, our schools need to be places where students can focus, engage, and learn without unnecessary or outright harmful distractions. Parents, teachers, and child development experts all agree cell phones are getting in the way of students' learning. Teachers shouldn't have to compete with a cell phone for their students' attention, and students and educators should be able to collaborate effectively without devices standing in the way. The reality is clear. Well over half of U.S. high school teachers say cell phone distraction is a major problem in their schools. It harms young people's ability to focus, lower test scores, harms mental health, facilitates bullying, and disrupts the learning environment for everyone. The research backs this up. Across the globe, schools with strong cell phone policies have seen decreases in bullying, improvements in attention and focus, and higher standardized test scores. It's common sense. Academic success depends on students being not just present, but actually engaged during class so they can perform at their best. These are the same concerns I've been hearing from parents and teachers, both in my district and across the state. They want classrooms where learning comes first. That's why I committed to championing this bill in the Senate. Senate Bill 2427, the bell-to-bell cell phone ban, provides the guidance and guardrails schools need to clear expectations that keep students focused and present in the classroom. At the same time, this legislation recognizes that every student needs are unique. It includes common sense exceptions so kids who need a device for legitimate purposes don't face unnecessary barriers. It also takes the whole child into account. We work closely with educators, child development experts, and lawmakers to ensure Senate Bill 2427 supports students rather than setting them back. This bill makes clear that schools cannot rely on expulsions, suspensions, fines, or tickets to enforce this policy. Restrictive punishment only undermines youth people's academic progress. Experts consistently tell us that when students put their phones down, they are more likely to participate, collaborate, and learn. By removing harmful distractions from the learning environment, we're giving educators a better opportunity to reach students, spark their curiosity, and help them succeed. Of course, there'll be a transition period. Parents, students, and teachers will need to adjust to the new expectations. But I'm confident Illinois is ready for the transition because we all share the same goal: giving our young people the best possible opportunity to succeed. Students need to focus on learning, and we have a responsibility to support environments that help them do just that. This law is about ensuring our schools remain places where education comes first and that every student has the opportunity to thrive. Before I close, I'd like to thank Governor Pritzker and one other person. I know Lindsay Volt is somewhere in here. Lindsay has done a lot as well and worked with Representative Musman and I in making this policy a priority. And I want to thank Representative Musman as well as Representative Slaughter, Representative Moeller for helping move this measure through the House. I also want to take a moment to thank my friend, State Superintendent Tony Sanders. Tony and I have worked together on education issues for my district for years, and I'm proud of our partnership continues to deliver for Illinois students and teachers. And yes, I'm a proud public school graduate. Thank you. And then I'm going to move to the Spanish portion of this, so bear with me all. Buenos días, soy la senadora Christina Castro, representando el Distrito 22. Yo apoyé esta ley porque creo que todos los niños merecen una educación de calidad. Pero para que sea posible, nuestras escuelas deben ser lugares donde los estudiantes pueden concentrar, participar y aprender sin distracciones que no sean necesarias o que sean negativas. Padres, maestros y expertos en el desarrollo de jóvenes están de acuerdo. Los teléfonos celulares están afectando el estudio de los estudiantes. Los maestros no deberían tener que competir con un teléfono celular por la atención de sus estudiantes, y los estudiantes y los maestros deberían poder trabajar juntos de forma exitosa sin que los aparativos sean impedidos. La realidad es clara. Más de la mitad de los maestros de secundaria de los Estados Unidos aseguran que la distracción causada por los teléfonos móviles es un problema grave. Dificulta la capacidad de concentración de los jóvenes, reduce las calificaciones, afecta la salud mental, facilita el bullying y afecta al ambiente de los estudios de todos. Las investigaciones lo confirman. En todo el mundo, las escuelas con políticas estrictas sobre el uso de teléfonos móviles han registrado una reducción de acoso escolar, mejores resultados en atención y mejores resultados en las pruebas. Es de sentido común. El éxito académico depende de que los estudiantes no solo estén presentes, pero también participen actualmente durante la clase para que podrán rendir al máximo. Estas son las mismas preocupaciones que han echado de padres y maestros tanto en mi distrito como en todo el estado. Quieren salones de clase en las que el aprenden sea lo primero. Por eso me he comprometido a defender este proyecto de ley en el Senado. El proyecto de ley en Senado 2427, la prohibición del uso de teléfonos móviles de campana a campana, ofrece la orientación y las medidas de protección que las escuelas necesitan para establecer expectativas claras que mantengan a los estudiantes concentrados y presentes en el salón de clase. Al mismo tiempo, esta legislación reconoce que las necesidades de cada estudiante son únicas. Incluye excepciones de sentido común para que los niños y niñas que necesitan un dispositivo con fines legítimos no se enfrenten de obstáculos sin necesidad. Nos da la oportunidad de dar excepciones para aquellos que usan dispositivos en situaciones donde inglés no es su idioma primario. Hay oportunidad de excepciones para estudiantes que usan los aparatos en situaciones de ser cuidadores de familiares. Nosotros tomamos cada medida para asegurar la seguridad de todos los estudiantes y cada situación de emergencia. También el proyecto de ley aclaró que las escuelas no podrían depender de expulsiones, suspensiones, multas o sanciones para hacer cumplir esta política. Los castigos restrictivos solo dificultan el progreso académico de los estudiantes. Los expertos nos dicen que cuando los estudiantes dejan a un lado los teléfonos, son más dispuestos a participar, colaborar y aprender. Al eliminar las distracciones negativas del ambiente del estudio, estamos dando a los educadores una mejor oportunidad de conectar con los estudiantes, despertar sus curiosidades y ayudarlos a tener éxito. Si habría un periodo de transición, los padres, los estudiantes y los maestros necesitarán tiempo para adaptarse a estas nuevas necesidades. Pero estoy convencida de que Illinois está preparando para la transición porque todos compartimos en este mismo objetivo, brindar a nuestros jóvenes la mejor oportunidad por nuestro futuro y triunfar. Los estudiantes deben de enfocar su atención en el estudio y tenemos la responsabilidad de apoyar los espacios que les ayudan a eso. Esta ley por objeto garantizar que nuestras escuelas siguen siendo lugares donde la educación sea lo primero y que todos los estudiantes tengan la oportunidad de prosperar. Antes de terminar, me gustaría dar las gracias al gobernador Pritzker por convertir esta política en una prioridad y al representante Musman por su trabajo para sacar adelante esta medida en la Cámara. También quiero dar las gracias al superintendente estatal Tony Sanders. Tony y yo llevamos muchos años colaborando en cuestiones educativas en mi distrito y me siento orgullosa de que nuestra colaboración siga dando resultados para los estudiantes y los maestros de Illinois. Gracias. And with all that, I'd like to turn it to my partner in arms in the House, Representative Michelle Musman.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Musman. I'm state representative in the 56th District and chair of the House Education Policy Committee. I was thrilled to be included in the work done on this bill this year. We know how impactful this is going to be for all of our students, and while we may not have been the first state out of the gate passing statewide legislation, I think that we can be incredibly proud of how detailed and thoughtful the construction of our bill actually is. I know that we generally like to be proactive and get in front of problems before they blossom into large problems. But I think for all of us, we did not realize how impactful cell phone usage would be as it slowly crept further and further into our daily lives. And instead, we had to be reactive. That being the case, I honestly think that, as everyone has said today, this is going to be a win-win for everyone. We believe that it will reduce bullying in our schools, that it will improve the mental health of our students, that it will improve their academic grades, and it will reduce wasted time in the classroom that teachers have to spend monitoring cell phone use. I also think this is a very opportune time for all of us to learn from our students. I think that we should be reflective as adults on how cell phone usage impacts our daily lives, how it impacts our emotional state, our relationships with other people, our work-life satisfaction. And I also think it's an opportunity for us to consider the cell phone usage that we foster and role model with kids who aren't even in schools yet. So if we're going to say that you need appropriate boundaries and balance for kids starting in kindergarten, we should think about those things for kids before kindergarten and for kids after they graduate from high schools, and again, in our own lives. I would say, while I was very proud of the work done, again, with Senator Castro, with the governor's office, with Lindsey Voles, certainly we did not do this work in isolation. And as the bill arrived in the House, while it may have seemed obvious at first, we simply want to ban and restrict the usage of cell phones, the details became more and more important. I think that many of my colleagues realized people do have very complicated relationships with their phones, and in today's day and age, we need access to them for a wide variety of reasons. And they began to ask more and more detailed questions. So it was very much a group effort when it came to designing the details of the bill, and I want to make sure that my colleagues do have credit for all of their contributions and participation in the production of this policy. One of them here today, Representative Justin Slaughter, was incredibly functional in making sure that this was all put together. It is not the right word, but he is going to be here to explain a little bit more from his own perspective the things that were most important to people in caucuses that he was representing, and the details that they wanted to ensure were brought together. So it is, again, my privilege to introduce my colleague. I want to thank all of the colleagues that were productive in the creation of this, and thank everyone for their enthusiasm. I know many schools cannot wait for this policy to get started. As you know, the official policy does not go into effect until the following year from now. Many schools are already taking the work that we have done and using it to make this upcoming year an even better than it may have been otherwise. So with no further ado, Representative Slaughter.
Good morning. Still morning, I think. But thanks for literally allowing me to slide in the back door here for this great event. Listen, as the chair of the House Black Caucus, and really on behalf of the Black Caucus, and also you heard from Leader Castro, who's a part of the Latino Caucus, we really wanted to just take some time to thank and commend all those who worked on this great achievement, but especially for our sponsors. And today is all about our sponsors and the governor's administration. I see individuals in the back who worked very, very, very hard to achieve this goal. But really wanted to just thank you for the thoughtful collaboration to consider factors and circumstances that deeply impact underserved communities. When you think about youth that are minorities and how Black and brown students are disproportionately impacted by school discipline, it was very, very important and critical to strike a balance between achieving the obvious objectives of banning cell phones in our schools, but also put forth policies that are essential to situations and circumstances that we more often see in communities of color. I also want to lift up the work for the Stand for Children organization. A couple of them are here standing up with us. There was, I believe, both local and national research, right, that Stand for Children did that brought these matters to light. These were certainly issues and concerns that, again, our minority sub-caucuses had, but also there were educational school advocacy groups that were also tracking this, managing this, working with our sponsors, working with the governor's administration. But this bill ensures that cell phone ban policies will be implemented in a fair and equitable manner. Equally important, it adds protections for students who are caretakers or parents, along with exemptions for students with IEPs, 504 plans, translation needs, medical care, and other written accommodation plans. Most importantly, you heard this from Leader Castro, this bill prohibits the use of suspensions and expulsions for enforcing the policy, right? This is very, very important. And also, when you look at the provisions that are in the bill, it really encourages the implementation of these policies to be done in a trauma-informed way. And so with that said, what you'll see when you do the research is that there are a lot of cell phone bans that states have put forth and actually passed. But when you take a look at this one is special. It's a bill that more so is also focusing in on racial and cultural competency. And so we're just really proud of our sponsors, the time and energy that they put forward on this, and in the governor's office for not just being a listening ear, but actually collaborating and really putting forth the best product that we could possibly have. So just very proud of this moment, and let's definitely cheer on this achievement. Thank you.
And I'll introduce the great South Elgin High School supporter of this bill, Zachary Schwartz.
Thank you, Governor Pritzker, School District U46, and everyone here today for the opportunity to speak on the behalf of the students impacted by Senate Bill 2427. I'm grateful to be part of a district that highly values student voices and gives us opportunities like this to share our perspectives. As students, we're used to having technology right at our fingertips, and sometimes our biggest distractions are right in our pockets. Cell phones can be one of the biggest distractions in the classroom. Even a quick glance at a notification is enough to pull a student's attention away from learning and make it difficult to focus again. When phones are put away, students actively participate more in the classroom, collaborate with one another, and actively pay closer attention. It creates a more focused and engaged learning environment. Learning to focus on the most important task at hand while setting all other distractions to the side is an important life skill. Building these healthy habits now will help prepare us for college, careers, and future opportunities. Our phones are valuable tools, but learning should always come first in the classroom. By reducing the number of distractions in the learning environment, every student has the best opportunity to succeed. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn over to Governor Pritzker.
Thank you. Terrific. Happy to take any questions from members of the media. Olivia.
Hi, Governor. Acknowledging that it can vary from district to district, it sounds like, can you give a little bit more detail on, and maybe this will be a question for the sponsors, but with the exemptions, is it literally true that students will not see their phones from the moment that they walk in to when they leave? Is that different?
You know who I'm going to ask to have come up to talk about this, because I'm going to ask both Senator Castro and also Representative Slaughter, because he worked on this starting a year and a half ago. And I mean, I know Representative Musman, you may have some comments too, but a lot of work went into making sure that we were taking into account all the exceptions and needs of students across the state, so that it wasn't just a one-size-fits-all sort of bill. So maybe Senator Castro first.
Is it the expectation with that educational use exemptions that students will, still be using their phones?
So I guess, so let's talk about that. So there's a couple things. From, I would say, K through middle school, there is a bell-to-bell ban, right? So meaning from the minute the kids get into the schools, however the school district does it, U46 obviously does the pouches, they put them in a pouch. Their job is to focus from bell to bell, right? They can use their phone. There are obviously ways for students if they need to get a hold of somebody. They can go to the office, they can, or if they have an 504 plan, if they're a caregiver. So there are some exceptions in the bill, right? Obviously, if English is not your first language. The other thing that's exempted from the bill is anything that has been issued by the school district. So if you have an iPad, a Chromebook, that's exempted. You can have a wireless phone. I mean, we're all guilty of tech when we're talking about tech, but the messaging part of it has to be disabled. So it could be just used for watches. So there are some exemptions in that. The difference is in high school. The reason we made the difference in high school is because you have a lot of students who do dual, like in this district, do credit, sometimes go part of the day and then go to work. So, and also, you're giving them a little bit more responsibility. So a district can go ahead and give that exception for lunch and passing period for them to have access to their phones. So it's giving them a little responsibility. It's also teaching them good uses of their cell phone, right? To create healthy balance with their cell phone. Look, we're all guilty. The minute we get a text, the minute we get a cell phone, look, half of you are already in your phones right now. Just kidding, just kidding. Lawmakers are guilty of it. But one of the things that I will say, I was joking with Suzanne, we're class of 93, 96, we didn't have cell phones. Many of you remember that. Oh, John, I forget, you're also a Streamwood High School grad, so U46 has produced some excellent folks. But anyway, so I would say that, we need to teach our students and people, and us in general, good practices, because we also need to develop those social emotional skill sets, the communication, those soft skills they're going to need when they're growing up in the world. And one of the things that I appreciate, I'll use my niece and nephew who have small children. They refuse to let them have iPads. They refuse to let them have cell phones no matter how much they beg. The problem is you get to an age where students are cruel or children are cruel. They're like, oh, look at me, I have a phone, and then they want to snap and all that. The idea is so that way they have better behavior and use the imagination, because I think that's very important. Letting students to use their imagination to grow, but also develop those soft skills so that way you have conversations, dinner conversations, right? So I think this bill was very thoughtfully created. Representative Musman did a lot, Representative Slaughter and others really kind of thought about this in a holistic approach. And yes, it'll be evaluated every 3 years, right? As technology advances, right? The district, ISB will kind of look, and then they'll make some adjustments as technology expands. I mean, technology is expanding rapidly. Look at AI, right? But we also need to be not dependent on technology. What happens when your phone goes down and you can't get a cell phone? We all used to know our numbers by heart. We kind of don't now, right? So I think when we came up with this piece of legislation, it was also to be thoughtful in watching that growth.
Sure. I think the only thing I would add is that while the legislation does allow more or less local personal choice for high school districts to determine if they would like to allow more flexibility, this was a point of contention and a compromise. And I think for many advocacy groups, they would indicate that the data is clear and that high schools should be encouraged to maintain a full bell-to-bell ban. Now, ultimately, the bill does encourage community participation in the development of their cell phone policy, and that is something that the school district will have to determine for itself if they think that it is better to go bell to bell, or if they would like to add a little flexibility. And certainly anytime they reevaluate their policy, they may choose to make different choices.
I think the key word there, if I may say, is flexibility. That's the beauty of this legislation is that each district and each community may have slightly different needs, and so we want to make sure that we're addressing those needs, again, individually across the school districts across Illinois. Yes, sir.
Senator Castro talked about technology. How do you deal with smart watches and things like that?
Yeah. Well, it applies to devices broadly that are communicative devices, but I just will say, I think that the point was really excellently made by Senator Castro that technology is moving faster than we can write legislation. And so we're going to have to review this. We may do it once every 3 years, but honestly, every year. And we've all seen their meta glasses now that are, there's all kinds of things that weren't even contemplated when the first cell phone ban went into place in a state. So we're going to have to keep, evaluating these things. But again, it's about sort of being flexible and also taking into account that we really want kids to pay attention in classrooms because, our teachers in Illinois are excellent. And we want to make sure that kids get the most out of their experience with their teachers.
Hey, Governor.
Yes.
Christina and I recently published an analysis of school finance data that showed there's still huge wealth-based disparities in the property tax rates that people pay to fund local schools. It also showed that wealth-based disparities in pure people funding on construction among high school districts. And most school districts in Illinois are still funded at less than 90% of adequacy. We're now in the 10th year of evidence-based funding. Is it time to consider an overhaul?
Well, we need more funding for schools that are not at appropriate adequacy levels. I've said that from day one, from before I became governor, and we were much further behind, I might add, before I became governor. When I became governor, we had schools that were less than 60% of adequacy. And we don't have that. We now have schools that are at 70% and above. So we're making progress. Meanwhile, it's never fast enough for me, if you ask me. Meanwhile, I'd also point out that our schools are, our school districts are challenged by wealth disparities in general. It's why EBF got put in place in the first place, that you've got places like East St. Louis and like the city of Chicago where you've got more kids who are in need than in other places. I pick on New Trier, but it's one of the great school districts that's doing very well, but it's in part because of that wealth disparity that you are highlighting. So we're always working on it. I would never suggest that we have tackled all of the problems of school finance in the state. And I will always say, as you're sort of suggesting, that we need to do more. The reality is, we are limited in resources. We're always challenged, I think, to make sure that we're balancing the budget and putting money into our priorities. I think the key thing is that I and the legislators that are here today have regularly put education funding as a top priority, despite the fact that we have had so many challenges. One more thing, because when we talk about funding, there is always a great need. I will just remind everybody that when I came into office, we literally had a massive structural deficit in the state, not to mention $17 billion of unpaid bills that I got left with from my predecessor, and we had suffered 21 credit downgrades over the last 25 years in the state, not a single credit upgrade in that time period. So we've had to not only, fill in a hollowed out government, pay off old bills, deal with the structural deficit, but also make sure that we're balancing the budget and running surpluses so that we can invest in the things like education, like teacher vacancy programs that have helped us to hire more teachers across the state. Wait, I just want to make sure there's not another that I haven't called on yet before I call on you again. Okay, Olivia, yes.
Have you spoken to the speaker since the Legislative Ethics Commission voted last week on the report on your exemption?
No, I ran into him. We were both at the National Council of State Legislators, which is a national organization meeting in Chicago. he happened to be tasked with introducing me, and so we kind of ran into each other in passing there, but I have not spoken with him since then.
Governor, the Department of Human Services said that the reductions at Choate Mental Health Center were on par with the success of the statewide plan that your administration made in 2023. How do these reductions add to that success, and what does a successful Choate facility look like this time next year?
Well, remember, I know it gets reported differently than this, but remember, the reason there are staff reductions is because we literally have moved the developmentally disabled patients, residents there to better facilities, to other facilities. So at some point, you don't need staffing when there's nobody at that facility. We have been reducing, as you know, the number of residents there over the course of time, over the last 2 to 3 years. And I feel like that's been a real success. Listen, we are behind in Illinois in terms of, the SODCs, our state-operated developmental centers. Most states have gotten rid of those mass congregate facilities like we have over the years. We never did in Illinois. And so we've got, I think, 7 SODCs. What they've done in other states, which has been very effective, is move people into community housing. And very much smaller group housing, and that's been very successful. It also saves money, but it's also a better situation for those residents. So I'm happy with the fact that we have changed Choate. I'm not suggesting that we're going to make an enormous shift over a short period of time, but Choate was a troubled facility. And I said from the beginning when we heard about the troubles there that if the staff there, if the agency couldn't get it right, that the right thing to do was to close the facility. And that's precisely what I have pledged to do and then done.
John, did you have one more? Do you have another one? Okay, right here, last one.
Yeah, hi.
Well, I've been assigned to ask this. What's the latest on the negotiations for the Bears Stadium?
I love that you've been assigned. You don't want to take full ownership of that one. I don't blame you. I will not turn this over to the legislators behind me to talk about. I'll just say this, that just reminding everybody, a bill to help the Bears stay in the state of Illinois passed the House of Representatives, and another bill, different one, passed the Senate. And with not a lot of time left, indeed, almost no time, those bills, weren't reconciled with one another. There wasn't a final bill that came. So we've really turned to the Bears and said, okay, tell us what in those bills you absolutely need. And then let's see if that's something that we can get through the legislature. And so that's where that situation is right now. The Bears are looking at those 2 bills and figuring out what it is that they need. And I assume will let us know in short order, but I can't tell you exactly when that will be.
One more.
I always, one more just for you. Yeah, Brendan.
I appreciate it as always. But I believe it was last week, you said that you hadn't seen the video of the January 4th police shooting that left Rachel Terrence, an unarmed mother of 3, dead after a traffic stop in East St. Louis.
Yeah.
Have you since had a chance to review that video? And if so, do you agree with the St. Clair County State's Attorney's decision to charge the ISP officer?
First of all, I received a full briefing about the video and about the circumstances back in January. So that's 6 months ago, really, when it happened or when we were made aware. Did not watch the video back then. I did subsequently see the video just in the last week. But look, the St. Clair County, as you know, St. Clair County State's Attorney, all the state's attorneys are independent of state government. So these are, independently elected people who make decisions about how to keep people safe and what to enforce, how to enforce within their own jurisdictions. He reviewed it independent of state government, independent of the Illinois State Police, and made the decision that you're highlighting, not to charge. It now sits with the Illinois State Police after that to review the policies and procedures and whether or not they were followed. And I know that they are going through a process to do that. We'll make a determination now that that process with the state's attorney is over. And I have not yet heard from the ISP about that. So,
Thanks, everybody.
yeah, thank you.